time?
Yeah, I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
How you ready?
Quite ready. Cool. So this episode is our favourite military armours and uniforms that me and Fraser think are pretty badass and why we like them.
And we begin with the Siberian Bear hunting armour from the 19th century, which I will show somewhere up here. And it is awesome. Like, it just looks cool.
Yeah, it's
covered in nails.
Cool.
It's covered in 1-inch nails that are spread about 3/4 of an inch apart, and it was used to literally fight bears. Like, it's called hunting armour, but of course you couldn't actually hunt in it because you'd end up stabbing yourself because there was no way you could run in it. So it was literally used to fight bears. It was almost more ceremonial than actually used, but it's nevertheless impressive. It was actually used to fight the Eurasian brown bear, which could weigh up to 360 kilograms, which is about 3 of me. I'm a fairly big lad.
Yeah, that's...
So it's impressive.
Not bad. So wait, was it just sort of like, if they, like, impaled them?
Yes, it was literally so if the bear took a swing at you with its paw, it would hurt its paw. If a bear, like, tried to muffle you or, like, land on you,
Run out.
it would bleed to death.
So is that where, like, the bear hug comes from?
Bear hug. It might be, I don't know. We'll find that out for you some point in the future.
Okay, so the first one I put is the Rajput Warriors, which translates to the son of the kings, and they were from Western India about 900 AD, and they were really cool, covered in silk, head to toe, looked quite classy, but then they have an entire face covered in chainmail. They used what's called a katar, which is pretty much the Assassin's Creed knife, just on the top of there, just came out of that long, and they would have it kind of concealed when they got into close combat. So they were to protect the borders. They weren't really invading forces, and they were used against the Mongolian hordes and the Turks.
Impressive. My next one is the Winged Hussar. It's the Polish-Lithuanian cavalry unit from the late 16th century, introduced by King Stephen Bathroy. Sounds like something like Game of Thrones, if you ask me. They carried war hammers or sabres, but of course the most impressive thing about them is the huge set of wings on either attached to the back of the horse and saddle, or indeed to the rider's shoulders. They were huge wooden structures that were covered in either goose, eagle or ostrich feathers, which is quite elaborate in their own design.
Pretty cool.
And they were actually used in battle. However, the reason for the wings is often disputed. Some historians have said that it's to try and protect the rider from swings from the backside, so if someone's attacking from behind. Although there's other historians that believe it was actually to drown out the noise for the horse that the rider was on, because the wings were very loud as they went, and therefore the horse wouldn't be able to hear the approaching army. Other people have also argued that it's to scare the other army into thinking there's more horses than there actually are because they were so loud, or just sheerly because they were so intimidating.
It's like angels. And
yeah,
stuff,
because
so
they looked like 12-foot angels with these huge wings.
they are very impressive.
Very impressive specimens, yeah.
The second one I've gone for is the Jaguar Warrior, the Aztec warrior from about the 1500s. So what they were not like particularly impressive armour they used, it was just sort of uniform where they had jaguar pelts all over them that they had killed themselves. So they started at a very young age from their fighting. They were chosen for the role. It was about 17 they really started their training, and they weren't allowed to become a Jaguar Warrior until they captured and killed 4 men. That's when they sort of got their warrior status. Unfortunately they were really kind of to protect the Mexican Empire, but they didn't really go for that long, because the Spanish invasion that they brought over to expand their borders ended up killing out most of them and taking over their land.
It's a shame. It's a similar way you become a man in Fife, where I'm from. You have to kill 4 men before you're allowed to officially be known as a man. My third uniform this time, it comes from World War II and the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops, or as they were also known, the Ghost Army. This was an American Special Forces unit which weren't even disclosed until 1996. So the men who were in this unit weren't allowed to talk about what they had done in the war until after I was born, and I'm the younger of the two of us. Mm-hmm. So these men were literally not allowed to tell anyone, and they were a group of artists and designers who were picked out of American colleges, handpicked by the military for this operation, and there's about 1,100 of them in the unit. However, their job was to try and pretend to be other units. And the reason they were artists and designers was they had to be able to design. They designed tanks that were made of rubber or tanks that were inflatable, and they'd put them up and set them up in such a way so that if an actual American tank unit was travelling north and they wanted to make the Germans think it was still in the same place, they would come in at the dead of night and they'd literally set up inflatable tanks and rubber tanks
brilliant.
in the middle of the night. And they had sound engineers as well that had spent months just creating a huge sound bank so they could make all the sounds of an actual military unit.
That is very cool.
And the reason I picked them out for the uniform episode is that their uniform didn't really exist. Their uniform was whichever unit they were practicing to be, and every man in the unit had to be able to sew perfectly before they were able to join the unit. So that on the way from one place to the next, they could literally sew on all of the badges of the other military.
That's quite impressive.
And that way they could actually be different American units. So while they were pretending to be one American unit somewhere, another one would be travelling off somewhere else. Which is really impressive. And they stayed in character the entire time as well. They would literally pretend to be these other people, and they would have to talk like that in case there was a spy listening. They wouldn't be able to talk as if they were themselves. They'd have to talk like other people the entire time.
Yeah,
which is really impressive. And they literally set up entire camps. And there's even cases of them going to make the Germans think they were attacking. They'd sneak up to just in front of the German trenches, where they'd turn on loudspeakers of audio of people shouting. Sometimes of people shouting at other people, like as if they'd screwed up. So it'd sound like a general shouting at one of his privates who dropped a grenade and things like that to make the Germans think that the Americans were right there. And it's a really interesting story actually. If you want to know more about it, then do check out the Stuff You Missed in History Class podcast by howstuffworks.com, and they have a great episode on it. And it's just a really interesting thing to learn about. So yeah, give that a check out. It's brilliant.
The final one I've done is actually a really modern one. It's still in use. It's only been sort of implemented in the last couple of years. Is the Taiwanese Special Forces. They're one of the only countries to really put in a real militarization of their police. And why I think they're so cool, maybe not cool, more terrifying, as you'll put a photo up later, is they've got entire ballistic masks over their faces that mean there's apparently no one's really tested it, with the person behind it, but it can stop a bullet from very close range from a powerful pistol. So it's just like pure for fighting against mobilisations of people in the country. But also a couple of reports were saying it was a threat from China, that they're really strengthening up their forces from there. But yeah, there's something out of like a film, a lot of people call them stormtroopers, or from like the game Army 2. It's
They're
very cool.
Game. But I do imagine if they introduced the face masks that were bulletproof into Call of Duty, that would cause riots.
Imagine not being able to get headshots.
Imagine not being able to get headshots. That'd be the worst. Especially if you're on headshot mode and then you couldn't do anything. Anyway, it got us thinking, what are your favourite armours from history? Are there any that we've missed out that you think we should know? Or maybe you could design your own and send them in to us. And thanks again for watching us today. If you enjoyed, please do like and subscribe. It makes a huge difference as we are a brand new channel.
Yep, so feel free for that. And our next episode is going to be the terrifying cannibals in history. So see you for that one.
And if you didn't enjoy, also like and subscribe.
Please do.